Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday, December the 17th. We're going to be talking about slop. I can't get over that word. I really like it. It's the best word to describe what's going on right now. I think it's short for sloppy. But whenever I think of slop, I imagine somebody going out to a trough full of pigs and slapping a bunch of nasty-looking junk down, whatever the refuge was from other animals wouldn't eat or came out of your kitchen scraps, and then these pigs just run up and they eat it and they're psyched. And I feel like that is what our media is doing to the MAGA base. So I'd like to do a little bit of a retrospective as we come to the end of this year, and we're coming to the end of year one, Donald Trump presidency 2.0. Are they just feeding you slop? I did a masochistic thing last night. I sat down with my wife and I turned on the Katie Miller propaganda interview of Kash and Alexis Wilkins, and I've got a couple little highlights from that. And what I'd like to do, if you guys are open to it, for those of you that are members of our channel over on YouTube, if you are a subscriber on Locals, if you're a subscriber on X, you can call in and join me. I'd like to do this tomorrow night. I'd like to do a reaction in real time. We can do a watch party as part of our normal call-in show. So if you're not familiar with the way that we do things here, let me plug that because I almost never do that up front. If you're watching, make sure you guys give us a like at some point in time. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We'd appreciate that. Notify if you want to know when we go live, which is at 0930-ish Eastern time. That's 8:30 here in Texas. And you can also support us and you can join us on these different places like Locals or on YouTube or on X. And if you do so, then you can do part of the call-in show, which is a lot of fun that we do on Thursday nights. I'd like to do a reaction live to the slop that was thrown in the trough. And I don't think people are buying it because I went out there and did kind of a survey of social media and people went like, nope. I brought on an expert to talk about political operations and intelligence operations and intelligence in general. And then also a man who actually has some experience with a big manhunt that came out of the same field office that is handling the Brown situation right now, which is the Boston field office up in Boston, Massachusetts. So we've got George Hill, who's going to be joining me momentarily. And we were working out a couple of little audio things. That's where we're going to go. We're going to talk about slop. We're going to talk about the information op. We're going to talk about what's being slung to you and whether or not you guys want to eat it. I just want to know, do you want to put on the red hat, go to the trough like I showed you in the thumbnail, and consume whatever is being flung your way? Because it seems really lazy. It seems really sloppy, hence today's episode about slop. All right, so that's where we're going to go. And I think we'll have some fun with it. And generally speaking, whenever I have George Hill on, he both makes me laugh and then also makes me sad because he is a black pill dispenser, but not for nothing. He's right. Here we go. Cove Pure, guys, if you want something that doesn't taste like slop coming out of your faucet, and I do have that here in Texas, America. We've got a bunch of sulfur that's built into the water table, and they told me they won't filter it out at the city water place, so that's just how it goes. If you want to filter that stuff out like we do for our kids, you can go to covepure.com/KYLE. Covepure.com/Kyle. Couple things. First of all, having clean and tasty and sort of neutral flavored drinking water and not sulfur that doesn't sound like you're like taking it out of the filtration from hell, actually is kind of a big deal. It also is nice to know that you're getting all of the contaminants out of your drinking water, which may be put in after the fact, or maybe it's just part of the runoff. And that can include things like PFAs and pharmaceuticals and fluoride and lead and arsenic. Doesn't really matter where you live. This is an easy solution to all those problems. On top of it, it comes in a very handsome-looking desktop unit or a countertop unit. You don't have to do any plumbing. You just plug it in. It takes about 15 minutes to get all the pump primed up, and that is very easy to do. You just push a couple of buttons, and then you just wait. So if you guys are interested in doing something like that, the best deal that they've been doing is a $250 holiday discount, Christmas discount. They sold out doing that with our show, and so they're offering it to extend. You're going to basically be buying on back order. And I don't know if you guys have the same theories that I do, but my theory on back order is that people are willing to buy it to the point where they don't have it anymore. It doesn't suck to be the person who's in line to buy it next because, at least there's a market for this at all times. So check it out. I don't think you guys will be disappointed. Being able to push hot, cold, warm, have instant tea, instant coffee, whatever else, it is an upgrade. And of course, it's easier to set up than any of these drip filters, which I have one of those as well. And it works great. It's just takes time. So check out Covepure, COVEPURE.com/KYLE. Those are all the letters. Let's get into today's program right now. There's always links in the show description to our sponsors. And so we will discuss Slop with a Slop expert, perhaps. Here's my buddy, George Hill. Let's do a quick audio check here and make sure that what we've got is coming in hot. George, good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning from the Great White North. It's Fargo cold here.
How cold is it?
Not too bad today. It's in the teens again, but the other day it was -6, so in the morning. We haven't been above freezing in a couple of weeks.
It keeps all the weakness out. George, I noticed that you are a man and you are wearing a sweatshirt, which means that you could be a suspect in the Brown University shooting, but you don't have a pot belly. Is there a possibility you could be wearing like a belly carrier system when you were maybe involved in running around in Providence? Is that not you?
I've seen those belly bands. They're actually pretty cool. I mean, if you're one of those people that have to wear sweatpants every day and Crocs, that's an option for you. But this is a monotone, single-tone sweatshirt. It's not a two-tone sweatshirt. So
Got it.
I'll completely eliminate it from the robust investigative skills of the Providence Police Department and FBI.
Ouch. All right, we're going to talk about those. I've got some highlights or lowlights, if you will, from the press conference, which I don't think are great. And then I want to get into the broader, what I think is information op right now, or information slop, which might be more fun to talk about. Before we do, people who are new to the channel may not know my friend George Hill. He's one of our original Suspendables. So allow me to give a quick intro to you, George, and then I want you to actually give it further if you'll flesh it out. Quick and dirty. He's a military veteran. He's a Marine. He talks like a Marine. He's not gentle like a Marine, as you'd expect. And he worked in military intelligence. He worked in civilian intelligence, and he worked for the FBI until he retired. And people may not know this, but George Hill was one of the whistleblowers that came forward. Was it 2023?
God, seems like a lifetime ago. It was right before Steve Friend's testimony. So yeah, that sounds about right. 2023. All right, so but boy, how
early
much
23
changed.
Yeah, we're living in a totally different world. So at that point, he exposed the fact that the FBI had gotten unbidden information from a bank. Bank of America had just decided to voluntarily send all the banking transactions, people who were at January 6th. So George is a J6 whistleblower after he retired, and you could be a whistleblower before or after. Will you hit the high points of the career so people kind of understand where you're coming from when you speak and why I give you why I put so much authority on what you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really special. Just, I did 13 active duty years in the Marine Corps, multiple deployments to the European Theater of Operations with the 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, on board ship. Went to the Pacific for a year, went to the Philippines, did some counterinsurgency work down there, came back stateside, worked intelligence on the East Coast of the United States for another 6 years. I did a fun-filled 3 years as a recruiter in Philadelphia. Learned a lot there, and was out for 10 years because of personal circumstances. And went back in the reserves. I went in the Navy Reserves into their intel program in late 1999, early 2000. Had to go through their entire school program thinking like this would be easy, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. And then 9/11 happened, got swept up in that for multiple mobilizations, and was recruited by the National Security Agency, and loved my time down there. This was when we were a serious country, and we actually could label terrorists as terrorists and do the things necessary to protect the country. And then it changed. After 5 years, I joined the FBI as their National Security Intelligence Supervisor in Boston, where I had the counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and cyber programs. And in my spare time, I was the co-supervisor for the Boston Marathon Bombing Task Force. I'm being sarcastic there. I had the largest squad in Boston for years because of all that. And so I was rode hard and put away wet. So now I'm just a bitter old man.
That's exactly right. Will you contrast for people who do not understand this? And I think this is worth hitting again. There are two things that I've learned from you. One, the differential between the real intelligence community, the NSA and others, and what the FBI does, and the way that they consider themselves intelligence community, but maybe are not considered so much on the other side. And then will you give your definition and the change that happened at 9/11? Because I do think this goes back there. The 9/11 change of the mission of domestic national security. And I'm just going to turn it back to you on those two things.
An intelligence entity, a true intelligence entity, and there are, what, 26 organizations that claim to be member of the intelligence community. But unless you're collecting intelligence, you are not an intelligence entity. So if whatever means you're doing that, uh, not overtly in the sense that people can see it, but unless that's part of your daily operations, whether it be through signals intelligence, human intelligence, imagery intelligence, unless you are trained and equipped to go out and gather that information for the purposes of whatever, we'll just stick with national security, you're not an intelligence agency. You are a consumer of intelligence. So that's what most of the other so-called intelligence agencies in the IC are. They're consumers of other people's intelligence that they're collecting. Now, the FBI is constrained for what they can collect. Well, so they're supposed to be restrained, and they collect information or intelligence in pursuit of an open and existing case. That's the way it's supposed to work. So you would do it either going in front of a FISA court for a FISA, or you would do it for a Title III, again, in front of a judge. And that is intelligence that's predicated on some sort of an investigative activity. Unless you're going out and collecting intelligence, like putting UCs into a mosque or a traditional Catholic church, you're not a true intelligence entity where you're actually going out and making an effort to collect information for the purposes of maybe someday, hopefully, possibly, if we allow enough intelligence analysts to peruse the information, we'll come up with a case when we need to. That's the difference between an intelligence entity and someone who claims to be an intelligence entity, but are not, in the truest sense of the word. They're violating the DIOG, the Domestic Investigative Operations Guide, and they're violating people's civil rights with this intelligence program that they've created. Bob Mueller even referred to the FBI once as the Federal Bureau of Intelligence. They're not, nor should they be, but they do.
How are they thought of by the other real intel agencies? The Bureau, how's the Bureau received?
My first exposure to the FBI from an intelligence standpoint, I did a shared operation or interrogation in Guantanamo Bay with, we'll just call him Greg Erie, who was in the FBI at the time as an SSA. I think he did make it into I know he made it into the SES ranks. But the detainee said, didn't want to talk to the FBI and asked for his lawyer, and they just closed up their notebooks and went away. I'm like, this is not how any of this works, Greg. I'm like, this is the vaunted FBI that I've heard so much about in movies and TV shows, and they're not an intelligence entity, and it's offensive to everybody who's in the intelligence community when they refer to themselves as such. They consume intelligence that's produced by bona fide intelligence entities that are actually empowered and operating outside the confines of the continental United States.
All right, let's focus in on the domestic intel, the sort of change that happened at 9/11. I've said it in my words. I'd like to hear it in your words because I think I actually took all that from you. The idea that there was this change after 9/11, and in movies they call it the changeover, where everything now everything is different, and the rules have changed, and people have kind of slowly come along over the last 25 years to realize what that rule change was.
Hard to believe that we're talking about almost a quarter of a century has passed since that change. That's a long time. That's longer than maybe some people in your audience have been alive. And
probably
that
not.
changed.
Most of my audience is closer to like between you and me or older. But I think we have a sophisticated consumer base. There's not a lot of very young people, but if you're young and you're listening to this, this is worth digesting. You won't even remember it. And before, I'm going to actually interrupt you on that. I sat and talked to some of my neighbors the other day, and they're quite a bit younger than me. They're about a decade younger. And I said, I actually remember being able to hug a loved one, and then they walk down the jetway onto a plane. That was normal for the beginning of my life. It's not normal for people who are growing up today, and we've forgotten it 25 years later. But you used to be able to actually receive your loved ones. They'd come right off the jetway, and so you could actually take an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, put them on a plane, knowing that they were going into a sealed compartment. They'd fly across the country. They'd land at another, sealed compartment, and they could disembark, and another loved one could receive them there. So you could fly them to grandma, and it wouldn't be that crazy. There was just stewardesses and whatever weirdos were on a plane. And you can't do that anymore because you got to send them through security and TSA and the fondling and all the other weird stuff that goes on from the government. So anyway, just a kind of a momentary thing that I recalled how different things have been since 9/11, but it happened bigger in the government when it comes to collection, mission, priorities, and focus. So sorry to
It's funny how so many things flow through Boston. The lead agent for the shoe bomber was one of the SSAs for one of the counterterrorism squads that I supported.
Oh, interesting.
It's just, I don't know how. I mean, a number of the hijackers came through Boston. It seems like I don't know what it is about Boston. It just, maybe it's a giant suck. I don't know. It just brings in all the weirdos.
It's a
and
shit
crazies.
magnet is what we would call it, isn't it? Isn't that
But a great case agent. He was a former F-15 pilot. He's just doing his job. But that was ahead of before the country changed. So much after 9/11.
Yeah.
But what happened was when George Bush was in hiding at Camp David, and by the way, if you've never been to Catoctin State Park in Maryland, it's hilarious because they have people in brand new, top end gear from the Secret Service just out to be out hiking, providing security around Camp David. It's funny. And it's always a man and a woman. They're always in their 20s and they always look like they came off the cover of a magazine. They're always very pretty. But so when George Bush met with Bob Mueller right after 9/11, he said, and this has been captured in books, so this is not something that I'm making up or something that I heard from a guy who heard from a guy in a chat room on the internet. But Bob was told by George Bush that George said, "I know you're going to catch the guys who did this, Bob, but what are you going to do to stop the next one?" And that's when the FBI started the metamorphosis into a preemptive crime agency. And the only way you can do that is through intelligence. But if you're not legally empowered to go out and collect intelligence without predication, then you have to find ways around those pesky little things like the Fourth Amendment and other aspects of the Constitution and the DIOG. Well, the DIOG didn't exist then. But Bob Mueller went out and created this entity, and he first started off with the SAPR, the Statistical Analysis Program Review, which was a copy out of what was going on in New York City, and then introduced Dave Schlendorf and McKinsey and Company, where they created this abomination called Integrated Program Management, whereby the FBI just sets its own performance metrics, lowballs it, exceeds it, collects bonuses, and actually gets bigger budgets for more crime or more potential crime rather than less crime, less actual crime.
And this is the thing that Steve Friend has kind of honed in on when he was in the advocacy space, working think tanks and whatever, where it was essentially, unlike any other law enforcement agency, the FBI is incentivized to have more crime, to report on more crime. Most people are incentivized to say there is less crime. We're actually trying to work our way out of a job and we'll never do it, but we always want to show less so you can justify the budget because we're keeping things safe. The FBI says, oh no, there's so many threats and we get more threats every year and therefore give us more money. It's the exact opposite of what people would normally think that you'd say is, a success in law enforcement.
January 6th should have been the Super Bowl for the FBI, and Donald Trump came and ruined their party. But Steve D'Antuono and Steve Jensen came out with this narrative on January the 7th that we had white supremacists hell-bent on taking down the Constitution from San Diego to Bangor, Maine, from Seattle, Washington to Miami, Florida. And our democracy is in danger of collapsing under the weight of this white supremacist movement. And, Mayorkas at the time, goodness gracious, Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland has long since been beating that drum before he ever became Attorney General about white supremacists. We can tie Merrick Garland's pursuit of white supremacists all the way back to Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing. So they've always been in pursuit of this white supremacist narrative.
I'm trying to pull up the fun extremist plot that went on. And the claim that there was an extremist plot maybe is the better part of it. So let me put this on the screen here, George. I think we got this right here. This just got pushed out. This is what I think is a classic playbook. Did you read into this? Did you do any kind of analysis on the foiled New Year's Eve terror plot in Los Angeles that we talked about yesterday?
Only after you had it on your show the other day, because I saw it come across the news feed and I'm like, oh, this is bullshit. Oh, sorry. And I blitzed right past it at 100 miles an hour. Like once you know the playbook, because I saw it firsthand while I was with the FBI. I've read Trevor Arison's book. Once you've seen the playbook more than once, you know intuitively what's going on here. And I only dug into it only after your show because I'm like, oh God, this is probably going to come up.
They put a drone up in the air for the meeting where they actually set up the arrest so they could get aerial footage of the arrest, where they had something like 40% of the people on the ground were in the paybook of the FBI or on the payroll of the FBI between the informant and the UC. Like that's really silly to me. Like almost half the people there are ready to arrest the other half there. It's almost like a Babylon Bee or an Onion type story, except it's real. And again, you can see right here, BBC News shows you the aerial footage. I reached out to Trevor Aronson since you mentioned him, and I said, they had a drone up. I don't think that's a plane. That's too low. And he goes, we asked for the drone footage, and the FBI claimed we're unable to get it. It's unable to download, which sounds classic FBI as well, which might actually be true. That's the funniest part about it for me. They're so bad with technology on occasion that it might actually be real.
If Ryan Maddow was operating that drone, we would have footage.
Everybody would have footage. Yeah, he would share it right away. It would be on Twitter everywhere, and he would get huge numbers on it. That's exactly correct. Okay, so George, I want to hone in on slop. What do you think about the word slop as a discussion about what's going on right now?
It is gross. It's smelly. It's gross, and it's something that you would dig a hole and bury, and that way you wouldn't have to look at it or smell it.
You once described to me the sort of way that real information operations are done with the contrasting clockwise, counterclockwise. Will you describe that again? We occasionally get new audience. I think we have got new people listening now that have probably never even seen your face or heard your voice, and it's worth people at least doing that for their critical thought as things start flying at them and they go, oh, like what is true and how do I assess it?
The best way to keep people away, people that are trying to thwart what it is that you're trying to do, which is at the center of that circle, is to start concentric circles, but multiple circles spinning in opposite directions so that who is ever in pursuit of trying to disrupt your operation, even if they penetrate a couple of those circles of mis and disinformation, they will never get to the actual center of the circle because they think that they've solved it. And you want to give them enough meat and blood to make them think that, yeah, we disrupted this, we solved it, and they never get to the true operation at the center. And it may start with an agency all email to the entire workforce at Langley, and that starts one circle spinning in one direction, and then another within a department, and then another going a different direction. You may want to spin up some DoD circles going in another direction, but you want to create as much confusion as possible so that as people penetrate, your enemy penetrates those layers of obscurity, that they think that they've solved it when they never actually get to the core to begin with. And I've been on one of those circles. I thought I was the hero of the day, as was I thought of my team. And it's not a pleasant place to be in when you find out at the end of the day that you were just used and that you were part of an op.
The idea that you have an achievable mission and you think that you're the center of it seems really important. There's a movie that I like to reference people to if you guys want to see this in sort of like a criminal way and kind of an entertaining, Morgan Freeman and Ben Kingsley and some really great acting, Bruce Willis. Check out Lucky Number 11. They talk about it as being the Kansas City Shuffle. And it's, everyone looks one way and you go the other way. But more accurately, what is going on is the hustle is, you're being hustled and you think you know what the hustle is. And that's the hustle. And so that's the easiest way to explain it to people, is that you think that you've understood the con game, and that's actually the con, is that they let you think that you understood what was going on so that you could get it done, and you kind of saying it from the intel side. I've got a press conference piece here. You were on the Boston Marathon Bomber Task Force. So you've seen Boston do criminal manhunts.
Yes.
And you guys did that in 2013, if memory serves.
Yeah. I was actually part of that leadership team working. I mean, we got things settled down after a couple of days, but it became like 13 on, 12 off type. You had to do a handover, so it was, black and left, port and starboard side, whatever you want to call it, 12 on, 12 off.
This is something from the press conference. I just want your analysis on this, taking it cold. This seemed like it was a pretty disastrous press conference. I got a couple little clips of it. It's not the entirety of it, but they all are about this bad. So let's just kind of like look in on how things are going up in Rhode Island. That's not it, George. That was you.
Have you two related? Have you reviewed any communications to Brown before the shooting that revealed any kind of threat of any kind to anyone as Brown? And then since the shooting, I believe some web pages for students or faculty have been taken down. Is that a response to any external threats to anyone in the community?
We have been working very closely with law enforcement to provide them with all of the internal to Brown information that they need to do this investigation. It's their investigation, they're the professionals. So we're providing information. We're not in the job of reviewing it for them. I know nothing about web pages being taken down as part of this. It's the first I've heard of it.
So there you got like kind of a little taste of people trying to ask the question. The question was, did somebody take down some web pages? There's a apparently an LGBTQ plus, maybe like a Muslim guy that doesn't seem to fit into Islam, and had a page taken down. And so all these people are speculating what it meant. And this was going all over social media, which is way faster than you can get a mayor or a president of a university to keep track of. What do you make of we're not taking anything down, we're leaving it to law enforcement? What does that look like to you?
I want to break it apart first, because we saw this, during the manhunt in Boston after the marathon bombing. Your 13s and by and large your 14s are truly trying to do the work, and there's no doubt in my mind that there are law enforcement and detectives in Providence, because this is a capital murder case. This is not an FBI-led investigation, that are truly doing their very best to identify this. But then you've got this other side of it, the political side of it, and that's what we just were shown, and what you're asking me to comment on, and that's the ugly side, and that's what, unfortunately, what people see, they ingest, and they pay attention to. And her number one objective is to protect her $60,000 a week salary. Her number two objective is to protect the university.
Wait a minute, is it that high?
Yeah.
$60,000 a week?
$60,000, I think $63,000 a week, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah. Whoa. I know, right? How do you make ends meet on that, right?
How do you even, that's just tough. Just thinking of all those hardworking university people and $60,000 a week in Providence. That doesn't go very far, I guess, huh?
Well, in Providence, it will. I mean, Providence they're above the national average of the percentage of population that collect SNAP benefits. So in Providence, $60,000 a week could get you far. In Newport, Rhode Island, $60,000 a week may get you, a house on the beach, but that's about, and maybe a small. It's hard
to watch people struggle like that after that great service they've done in academia. You can tell she's obviously worked her hands to the bone to get to that point. So that's
the woman who was shot was a teacher's assistant, so the professor couldn't even be there for the exam preparation. So you have this woman, complaining that she's being attacked and the university's being attacked,
right? With
almost no mention of 2 dead and 9 critically injured.
This is not the problem. What about me?
Yeah, she's playing the victim at $60,000 a week.
That's nuts.
And deflecting blame onto whoever she can put it on. And some of the students now are posting, and I know this because I follow Boston pretty closely, are posting that the Brown University had actually brought in some adjunct professors from the territories on the West Bank and in Gaza in the past, when this globalized the Intifada movement was really gaining traction here in the United States.
Got it. Okay, so we feel bad for the president of the university. She's obviously getting attacked, and that's not fun. Let me do a quick read for our friends over at Patriot Protect. And then I want to get into a couple more pieces of this, and I want you to kind of break down. There's like all these bizarre questions. And then the best part of it is Sean Hannity had an announcement last night that should make everybody feel just great. And of course, that's me being slightly sarcastic because you know how much I love Sean Hannity, guys. Let's do this real quick. Patriot Protect is the website that you can go to. It's patriot-protect.com/KYLE, Patriot Protect. Link in the show description. If you use Gmail, if you use ChatGPT or AT&T or DoorDash or Comcast or any of these other major companies, then you might find yourself at a critically elevated risk level, because even in just the last few months, these have all been confirmed with major data breaches. If you guys listen to our thing with Skip, who is one of the co-founders of Patriot Protect, he was mentioning that sometimes it's not even the company you deal with, it's the companies that they deal with, whether it be an Oracle or somebody else that they're using to be able to move data around on the web or to their other locations. When leaks are exposed, they give up names and emails and addresses and phone numbers and behavioral patterns, and scammers will rely on that to target you, and it makes it much easier. And then, of course, you got data brokers that are interested in just selling it for nothing. They just put it on the web so they can get clicks, and that gives out maybe your home address, your family's address, your habits, your age, your income. And what it does to give them a kind of an opportunity to target you and see, are you worth the squeeze as the orange that's floating out there? If you guys want to go Google your names right now, see if you can pop up your name and your address, see what you find out, and see who's publishing these details. Especially if you type in your name and address, you'll find this stuff, and it's not good. I found senior members of this administration who I could find their cell phone numbers because of it, which is how these folks actually operate. So if you guys want to protect yourself, check out Patriot Protect. You sign up. They have a search and destroy protocol that will wipe you off the web, and they keep working on it. It's what we use right now. My wife uses it. My parents use it as well. It's inexpensive too. That's the thing. This is like an ounce of cure versus an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure, because it can be very, very expensive if somebody ends up scamming you. And it may not be this year. It'll just be at one point in time. They catch you while you're running between toilet and shower, and you give the wrong answer to something, and now people have access to stuff. So just be aware. That's how they catch you. They're just looking for one moment, chink in your armor. If you guys want to armor up and not be in the pile of leads they go after, check out patriot-protect.com/KYLE. I think it's 15% off of the annual subscription. It's dollars a month, measured in single-digit dollars a month, and link below. All right, George, back into this thing. Do you want to hear some more of this fun press conference? This was kind of like an epic disaster. This was a feces storm, if you will. And here's some more of it, talking about whether or not we know where the cameras are. Where are the cameras? Inside, outside? We don't know. We'll just make it up.
So the video that we showed you came from inside the building, and that's all we had at the moment. That's all we have at this moment. Correct.
Inside the engineering building, though?
I'm sorry?
It's from the outside of the building.
From the
I'm sorry.
outside, so do you have video footage
Yes.
inside the engineering
Both
building?
inside and outside. I'm sorry, just outside. That's what we have, not inside at all. I'm sorry, just outside.
Are they going to be released anytime soon, like from inside the building?
That was released already. That was the outside of the building. We released that.
Yeah, let me just jump here and clarify. Okay, so there is for those. Let me try to explain that. So, as President Paxson knows, there was a major addition put on that building within the last 5 years or so. That is a modern building attached to a much older one in the back. So. It doesn't come as a surprise to me, at least, that there are cameras in the newer part of the building. And there is video footage, okay? So there's the back part of the building, old part, and front part, new part. The shooting occurs in the old part, towards the back, out towards Hope Street. In that older part of the building, there are fewer, if any, cameras in that location. I imagine because it's an older building. So as students are fleeing the area of the shooting into the new part of the building, there are cameras in that brand new building that show that chaos. But the only video of the presumed, anticipated, suspected, however you want to define it, person of interest, you have it. We would release it if we thought it would be helpful in identifying this subject, because we are relying on the press and public to help get us there. There would be no reason for us to hold it back.
Clear as mud. What do you think there, George? What's going on here in this press conference?
We deserve better liars, right?
Do we? I mean, that's actually an open question. Do we deserve better liars? I said the other day, I think we have the psyops we deserve at this point.
Man, we must have been really, really bad people. But I mean, the White House was built in what? 17 something. That's a pretty old building. I think they have security cameras around the White House, don't they?
Well, the age of the building determines the capability of your surveillance cameras, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, and now they're going around checking Ring doorbells for curbage footing, And most of those buildings there have high walls, privacy, hedges,
Gates and so on,
things
yeah.
of that nature. So, they're just going through cosplay right now. So they're lying to us and going through cosplay. But on the upside, at least Brown University got someone to pick up all the trash, courtesy of FBI ERT around their building.
They were stomping on things, weren't they? Did we like
Stomping,
that?
moving snow. I'm surprised a couple of them didn't have shovels and maybe throwing some salt out.
Was there bad weather? I can't remember. When did the Boston Marathon bombing happen? Was it
April 15th?
And so was there snow on the ground? That was after the snow.
Oh no, it was actually
rain?
it was actually a very nice day by Boston standards for April 15th.
Got it. So no snow stomping to find evidence that wasn't required. Is that a tactic you've ever seen FBI ERT use? The evidence response team?
It really breaks my heart, because what happened during the marathon bombing and the investigation afterwards was one of the largest crime scenes in the United States after 9/11. And the standard was really set for ERT that brought in people from all over the country, moving evidence on a daily basis, where we actually use the FBI jet for what it's supposed to be used for, sending it down from the terminal at Boston Harbor down to Quantico for analysis. It was the ERT team that found the lid for the pressure cooker on a building half a block away. So it's kind of sad, really, when I look at what's happening in Providence compared to the optic I had of what was done during the marathon bombing. It really is. I mean,
there's a high degree of competence in that agency. Listen, I mean, it exists. Whether or not it's employed is another thing. So here's the question that I've been trying to grapple with. And I had a major news organization ask me, is there a possibility that we've got an FBI that is spiking the ball, that is deliberately allowing the guys at the head to take the heat for looking terrible and, not putting their best foot forward on something like this? Is that possible?
Wow.
It's really it's a dark problem to contemplate. But do we think we're talking about information ops? We're talking about the slop that people will eat. And if we got one side saying, oh, these guys are amazing and they're doing incredible work and everything they do is heroic. And then you've got an agency that decides, you know what? You've been shit talking us for nigh on a decade here. Why don't we make you experience what it's like to have people come at your face when your work looks terrible? Because none of the people on ERT are going to be named. Nobody in the public is ever going to know their names. They're not going to be individually outed. Is there a possibility that the quote unquote this FBI and that FBI is now letting the guys who run or nominally run the FBI kind of experience what it's like when people question your work and giving them a taste of it? Just rambling thoughts.
I don't even want to think of that as being a possibility, but it certainly is well within the realm of probability that could be the case. Because you're right,
and it can be done really easily.
Those support employees that are doing ERT and those 12s and 13s, they'll be fine.
And they're going to do. And look, you can send out the B team, and nobody knows you're sending out the B team. The A team's down at Quantico. We know that they've got an evidence collection, response from the laboratory division that could fly up there on the jet, and they could go get work done. But there's a real possibility that we just go, why put the A team on it when we can have the mediocre team go do it? And they're going to do the best they can. It's going to look a little silly. It's going to look something like this, George. This is what I played yesterday. This is a video only clip, basically, folks. So you're going to miss out if you're listening. Good chance to go over to Spotify. And those in the military will recognize this as a search for sensitive items when nobody is in charge. If you let the E3s run it, then everybody is the boss, so everybody just kind of wanders around aimlessly.
Yeah, we would call that in the Marine Corps a monkey blanking a football.
Mm-hmm. That does not look good.
I'm sorry?
That does not look good on major cameras and news outlets.
I've been out of the Boston office for a few years now. I can't speak to what it's like today. But when I was there, because I had people on the ERT team, they practiced and drilled and trained at least once a week. They were highly professional. And I'm a very critical person. I hold everybody to a Marine Corps standard. I know it's not fair, but I was thorough. I was never less than impressed with the folks in Boston ERT. And I pray to God that they still maintain that level of professionalism because I have no idea what the heck I just saw happening there in Providence. I mean, really, did they just give people some old raid jackets off the street, clean them up a little bit, get the dry puke off their face and, pull them up out of the gutter and send them out to do this? Because that's what it looked like.
It's just wandering. And that's not like at the beginning of the search where people are trying to get their bearings under them. That's somewhere in the next day or 2 or 3 days later. So in theory, everything should be organized, gridded, your command post is established, your marching orders are out there, your teams are coming in shifts like you talked about. I got another one of that.
There is a command post in Chelsea. They have a command post. Even though they're not in the lead, they do have a command post.
Well, we're about to find out. Sean Hannity's got great news for us. I got one other video. This is from yesterday as well, but I want people to see it. I think this is the snow kicking video. So if people haven't seen it, and George is an audio listener to this podcast on occasion, I don't think he, generally speaking, is watching this, so he misses out on some of the visuals.
We're looking right now at the FBI, who is gathered there as part of the investigation. And John, at times we've seen them with actual rakes combing through some of the snow-covered ground there, some of the shrubs, some of the trees. They're obviously looking in very specific areas. Again, this is live, watching the FBI combing through, obviously looking for any bit of evidence to further this investigation, live out of Providence, Rhode Island, John.
Yeah, anything that the gunman might have dropped or tossed on his way out of the building as he went walking down the street, because that's...
whenever you're involved in a mass shooting, you might just walk and throw your gum wrapper into the snow, or maybe you might just toss, I don't know. Like, what were they looking for there? What are they kicking snow about?
Well, 2 things. Number one, where's that flamethrower that you were going to buy last year? They certainly could have used that there. Do you still have that?
Brother,
boom.
I'm ready.
Instead of kicking snow around, just melt it. That's all I'm saying. Just, work harder or work smarter, not harder.
Heat gun technology has been created. There are large heat blasting things that you could actually melt that entire area. I mean, we had them, those big, what are they called? Like space heaters that you'd have in a garage space. They throw like a propane behind it and they just throw out a bunch of heat. It's doable. By the way, if you were just listening, you didn't see that I just put my flamethrower, which sits next to me. That's the kind of podcast this is. I have a flamethrower within reach when George Hill asked about it. We didn't prep that one.
So the other thing regarding this, as far as they may have dropped a gum wrapper, there is video of him walking before the shooting, and then video of him walking with a bag afterwards. Where did he? I'm sorry, I had it backwards. Where did he drop that bag? Or
right,
I might have the other one.
Yeah, when did he acquire the bag?
Where did he get that bag?
Yeah, where did it come from, and where did it end up? That's a great question, right? Seems reasonable. We should be asking simple questions. But at the end of the day, I also know that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that is not privy, like the public's not going to see it. They are asking some questions that I don't think are outlandish. This is a kind of a crazy one. They apparently have an active school shooter side. This is how people get into the conspiracy realm. Tell me if I'm wrong about this. But when there are tactics that have been adopted, and I guarantee there was probably either federal funds or they got a big endowment to be able to put in the active shooter siren because, bad people own guns or whatever. And then they don't use it. And then people ask about, hey, what about the active shooter siren? How come you didn't use that? And they're like, oh, that's not what the siren's for. And they're like, it's literally on your website that says it's an active shooter siren. This is your, what is her name? How much does she make? $60,000 a week?
North of $60,000 a week. I want to say like $63,000 a week.
She should be paying a better spokesperson to come in and field this question, spin better, because she does not earn $60,000 a week with this kind of stuff. And this is where people end up with the conspiracies of what might be going on, because this seems completely illogical.
Do you believe that Brown had the precautions and safety measures in place before the shooting that were appropriate and necessary?
I do. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned the sirens because I think there's been some misinformation about that. We have 2 security systems that we can activate in a time of an emergency. One is a system that sends out text messages, phone calls, emails. And it was activated within minutes of the incident. Those messages went out to 20,000 individuals. So all alerts. We also have a system of sirens. There are 3 sirens placed across campus. Those get activated when there is a broad-scale emergency and we want people to rush into buildings. In the case of an active shooter, activating that system could have caused people to rush into Barris and Hawley. So that's not a system that we would ever use in the case of an active shooter. So,
just to follow up, it does say on the website when it was launched that it is for an active shooter.
It depends on the circumstances and where the active shooter would be, but you don't want to ever get people rushing into buildings that might be the site of an active shooting.
That's it.
That's my understanding.
Go ahead.
This is an active shooter siren that we don't use for all active shooters. We only use it in select ones. And tell me if I'm honing in on this incorrectly. I think that I'm astute on this. Whenever I hear people lying to me, they always want to use, what is it Mark Twain says? There's lies, there's damned lies, and there's statistics. It's 20,000 people got a text message, George. So 20,000 people. I have no idea what that reference is or who those people are, or if it's like all donors or like alumni or something. Like, who the hell are the 20,000 people, and why is that exciting or interesting to us? But it does make people go, well, 20,000.
She's making that up.
Five
it's
digits.
actually 20 minutes after the shooting ended that the text message went out. 20
That
minutes.
checks.
And then an hour later, another text message went out of another shooter, but it turned out that was just a rando shooting somebody in the city proper of Providence.
Sounds like a nice place.
It's a clown show when it comes to alerts. You know what else is on their website? It may not be there now. The location of all those 800 cameras.
Oh, that's good. So she didn't earn the $63,000 paycheck for this week. Would that be fair?
Epic fail. She needs to give that back. Or, as again, another Marine Corps reference, you have to back up to the paymaster's window because you're ashamed to show yourself.
Can we have the good news now? Are you ready for the good news?
Oh yeah.
I feel like this is also slop. I don't know what else to call it. Ready? Here we go.
Thankfully, I can report tonight the FBI has stepped in a major way. They are now assisting in the location of the suspect, and given the recent track record of the FBI under the helm of Kash Patel, I imagine we will soon have more answers in spite of regular media smears against him. Just as some perspective, take a look at your screen. This is a bureau now dedicated to solving crime, protecting American citizens without a political agenda. Now,
there's no political agenda. I actually made a Slop logo just for that, and I'm going to use it on some other stuff. We're going to keep the Slop logo available because that feels like an information op. You're going to tell me, again, those are statistics. What do they have to do with anything?
The FBI stepped in, lending technical assistance. So they had a POI lockdown for what, over 12 hours, right? Based on cell phone analysis. Let me tell you what the cell phone team did in Boston. They got the azimuth incorrect on this tower dump, which cost by 180 degrees and cost Sean Collier his life. We went with that tower dump that the CAS team gave us. And my sources that I still talk to around the FBI, nobody cares very much for the CAS team. So again, hat tip again, CAS team, another great job. But Sean Hannity supports the technical assistance that you're giving the FBI. Giving Providence.
Let's break that one down. So the CAS team is the cellular analysis survey team, and they do tower dumps, which means they pull data off cell phone towers. They do an analytical process. It comes out in this ugly spreadsheet. They drop it into some custom software, and it's supposed to give you, like you said, the azimuth is just the point and the direction and distance, essentially, that we're dealing with here. And so it's supposed to give you a look at where somebody might have been if you're tracking a thing. And they track some guy who wasn't there, who was in his hotel the entire time. That kind of leads you to believe that it's not an exact science. Now, we had a full-time CAS guy that sat next to me, and I was actually pretty fond of him. He seemed very competent. He cared about his job. But now that I think about it too, he also wasn't very fit. He was kind of like, he kind of reminds me of, what's the guy from King of Queens?
Oh,
you know,
Kevin, he was in Mall Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's his name? I should
I
look
like
him up.
him. He's funny.
He's funny. I mean, he always plays the same character. I just watched an absolutely horrific movie with him called Playdate, by the way, which has the guy from Reacher. Have you seen this? It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's not well researched, but he plays the same guy. And Kevin James, thank you. This is why look at our chat is so good. Our chat's like, yeah, we got you, bro. Kevin James is likable enough, and he seems like a guy that would be nice to sit down. The persona he plays seems like a guy that you'd sit and have a beer with, and that was also very similar to the CAS guy. You know, probably was athletic at some point in time, kind of let it go, maybe like this shooter did, has a belly, and not the like aggressive, fit, hard charging person that you'd expect to be in law enforcement. Kind of like now indoor dog, finds crimes on his laptop kind of deal. And my issue is that if people are lazy in certain areas, maybe they're lazy in other. I don't know if that's the case about the cast, but I do know that we've seen some real effy things, including apparently Kash was responsible for finding the pipe bomber out in Washington, D.C. And I know that I'm going to say it real clearly. I know they got that one wrong. And so does everybody who's paying attention. They got that one wrong. And now we got another one. So this leads me to believe, I don't think they're actually that incompetent. I think things can happen in the heat of the moment with the Boston scenario. You know, that I don't think they did that intentionally. I don't think you do either, right?
Oh, hell no. No, okay, absolutely not.
Just a screw up.
I didn't, if that came out that way, I apologize to
no, I didn't think it did. I think that you believe that they did their best and it wasn't very good at that point in time. But we're talking about 12 years later. In theory, they may have refined some tactics, and yet they're not the kind of people that it's not a standalone analysis that you say, well, the Kash team says this, so you can take that to the bank. There have been examples historically of that not being great.
Well, that's the issue, right? Or one of the issues is that people, they see this stuff. And I've seen the hairdos on the TV talking about cell phone analysis and shouldn't they be able to narrow it down? And they're talking about narrowing it down to like a 3 square foot block of a geo coordinate that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, we're not getting 10-digit grid coordinates out of this thing. For those of you that know what I'm talking about,
is just what the word implies. It's work. There's a multitude of data points, and requires a lot of effort, especially on this particular case, from a lot of different people. And there is no silver bullet that's going to come out and just win the day. Nor is there one individual in most cases that is going to come out and win the day. I think Rob O'Neill made that very clear, the guy who put a couple of hot ones into Osama bin Laden, that it was, over a couple decades of work and multiple people that brought him to that point in time as the first guy up the stairs, and boom. And that's what happened. But, people want television, and real life's not television.
That's 100%. They also don't mind being distracted, which I guess is what television is all about, right? It's all about sitting down and zoning out and let someone kind of spoon feed and force you this garbage, which is this is where the slop comes from. Every time I see something now, I'm like, slop, slop, slop. I'm riding on my bike. I'm doing my exercise. It's slop. It's just everything that comes at me is slop. We're going to leave the Brown scenario since it's still an open thing. And apparently Sean Hannity said it's as good as solved because now Kash Patel's on it. So we're going to kind of turn our attention to some of the, I don't know what else to call it, but information ops that have been going down in the last, let's call it 48 hours, the last 72 hours. And some of them are worse than others. And one of the worst ones is a guy named John Solomon, who I'm going to play, who is very difficult to listen to for me because when he says it, it's almost as bad as listening to the $63,000 a year Brown president who up talks. John Solomon has his own way of saying things that I cannot fathom how somebody was like, you know what? You're a writer. You type up stories for a living. Why don't we put your soft, doughy face and have you lie in a weird voice to people? That would be really good. So I've got that. But before we do, let's just remind people, you can find us on Spotify, and the easy way to do it, KyleSeraphinShow.com. That is a redirect into our Spotify profile. If you guys want to be able to listen and watch occasionally when we swap back and forth, that's how you do it. If you're interested in being part of our little watch party, which we'll do probably tomorrow, locals, KyleSeraphin.com. You guys can sign up there as a paid subscriber, and then you get access to all of the stuff we do. Plus, you get the phone numbers to the studio. And then if you're watching anywhere else, whether it be X or YouTube or Rumble, make sure you've liked us. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're new. Appreciate that. Send it to a friend. That'd be really great. So there's a little spot, and you may hear a Spotify ad right here, which is how we help pay some of the bills. That was not a question. That's just how I sound when I'm doing this slop. Okay.
I have switched over to Spotify, by the way.
What do you think? What's your review? You're a legitimate Apple podcast guy before?
Yeah, I started out with Apple, but most of the time I listen to your podcast when I'm at the gym. Most of the time.
George is both a listener and a contributor to the Kyle Seraphin Show, so that's really appreciated.
If you say if you point out that you need to look at the video, or I know that you're playing a video, it's like, oh, I need to see this. Unless I'm in the middle of a set. I'll just, pick up my phone and look at it.
Are you telling me you don't drop heavy weight to the ground and then just hit the button real quickly so we know what's going on? I'm so disappointed, George.
That's against gym policy.
You got a no lunk policy, no dropping of the weights?
Yeah, it's posted clearly on the wall. It's also posted on the wall that you have to re-rack your weights, which nobody does, and wipe down your equipment, which nobody does. So, and if they do, they just leave their filthy towels on the floor.
I went to a powerlifting gym in North Carolina while I was stuck there on a TDY once, and it said something like, your mom doesn't work here, clean up your shit, or something like that. It was like really not very nice. And I went like, yeah, put your damn weights away. Like, I'm sick of walking onto like a powerlift pad, or you go into the deadlift platform and some dude has left his spare weights there and the fractions or whatever. It's like, come on, man.
The Marine Corps gym at Quantico, at the base on Quantico, is clean enough to make microchips.
Good, as it should be. The gym that the FBI has is not, and it's on the same base. Okay. So let's do some slop. Speaking of things that are clean enough to do microchips, you'd usually say the floor's clean enough to eat off, right? Isn't that what they'd say? Or you could clean the toilet's clean enough to eat off. Not that anyone should eat off a toilet unless they are Marine.
Full Metal Jacket. I want that head so clean that the Virgin Mary herself would be proud to go in there and take a dump.
This is why you're here. Okay, let's do some slop. Here's John Solomon. This guy has he's got what would I say about Julie Kelly? I said a face for radio and a voice for print. So I'm gonna keep going with that. They're my two favorite people, Julie and Sean, and Julie and John rather.
We have more news of deep state corruption to report to you tonight. Just the News has learned via a new memo how the corruption probe into the Clinton Foundation was killed at the highest levels of the FBI. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley provided us with a timeline written by FBI investigators laying out the repeated political obstruction those agents faced from their own bosses and the Justice Department during the 2016 election and beyond, as they probed whether Hillary Clinton engaged in a pay-to-play corruption scheme involving her family foundation and then decisions she made as Secretary of State under Barack Obama. Here's a couple major quotes from that timeline, with one note saying, quote, field agents were frustrated, but headquarters would not let it go forward, meaning the investigation. Another revealed, quote, we were trying to explore the Clinton Foundation, and we were told no by FBI HQ. Remember another quote that we gave you not that long ago? That from the former Deputy Attorney General, Sally Yates, who told the Justice Department to tell the FBI, shut it down. That's another quote. That was from federal prosecutors. These latest revelations follow FBI Director Kash Patel's unearthing of a shorter timeline written in 2017, which chronicled the more stonewalling the Bureau investigators faced in three cities, Washington, D.C., Little Rock, Arkansas, and New York, during the Obama-era DOJ and FBI. But today's new documents show that stonewalling, that foot-dragging continued into the Trump administration. In 17 and 18, one key player in it, the former Deputy FBI Director, Andrew McCabe, who insisted that any decision to move forward on the Clinton Foundation would have to get his approval. And then, of course, he said no, according to these documents.
It's so hard to listen to that guy. We're gonna trot out a couple of things of slop for everybody. One of them is the Clinton Foundation. The investigation was spiked by the FBI. Shocking who, George? Who is shocked about this?
I watched it happen in real time. It was being run out of Utah.
Yeah. I know you've talked to me about this years ago, and I know that everybody I know in the FBI thought this happened years ago. I thought everybody knew this. So if this is new to you and it's not slop, please put it in the comments. That's fine. We're happy to eat the words. I thought this was common knowledge. And so when we start talking about some of this slop, which it 100% is slop to me, I got another good one. And it's like, how about, I'm going to skip past this. I got a bunch of these little tabs open right now. Well, they're all talking about Bongino maybe out, whatever. This is my favorite. Fox News ran this yesterday to cover up for whatever sort of weakness, grabbing the wrong guy, accidentally telling Donald Trump, sorry, but we said one thing, but we meant the other. Here's Fox News running this. You'll notice that it's coming from, there she is, Brooke Singman, who's very pretty and talks to Dan Bongino, apparently. FBI doubted probable cause for the Mar-a-Lago raid, but pushed it forward amid pressures from the Biden DOJ. Emails revealed, George Hill. I don't have the slop logo here. I'll actually grab it. Is this not slop? What are we talking about right now? December 16th, 2025.
What's Brooke Sigmund going to do when Dan Bongino checks out on New Year's Eve?
I don't know. I just want to know, how is it that we're trying to act like this is somehow new? And so this is an exclusive. This is my favorite. This is a breaking exclusive. The FBI did not believe it had probable cause to raid Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in 2020, but it moved forward anyway amid pressure from the Biden Justice Department, with an official saying he didn't give a damn about the optics of the search. Newly declassified documents reviewed by Fox Digital reveal. Is this, am I wrong? Is this not slop? Is this not the sloppiest slop?
No, you're 100% right. But let me tell you why I call this stuff slop because it is slop. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing of sources reveal and whistleblowers is a business model. It's a business model for politicians who have hearings and then go on, whether it's MS Now or Fox News or I'm trying to think of some of the other outlets, conservative outlets, but regardless, they go on that and they use it as fundraising vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lawyers, like the ones that you and I have been exposed to, they do something which people may or may not be familiar with. It's called churning the bill, where lawyers collude with one another to go back and forth between the clients, between the both parties, and keep that dynamic going in order to extract the most amount of money out of whatever their client is trying to achieve. So this is an economic model. It's disgusting. It absolutely is slop, and nothing's ever going to become of it. People. Apparently, Pam Bondi is not in the best graces of Donald Trump, and people are floating Trey Gowdy's name as a possible replacement. Really, Trey Gowdy? Trey Gowdy, the guy who whitewashed the whole Benghazi investigation? This slop is just a never-ending stream of filth, and people still eat it, which I don't get it.
That's the question. What are these people eating? Why are you eating the slop? There we go. We got the slop logo going, which makes me feel good. My minor contribution to the visual presentation of this show. Add things when I can. Okay, let's take the slop down. Let me tell you why this is slop, folks, and why I honed in on the date, which was yesterday, December the 16th, 2025. I'm going to just show you what I think is embarrassing. This is the Washington Post coming out of the Internet Archives from March 1st, 2023. Showdown before the raid. FBI agents and prosecutor argued over Trump. Now, George, you may recall this at the time. We lived through this thing. You were just getting out of the bureau then, or you had just stepped out and walked into the whistleblower space. An exclusive look at behind-the-scenes deliberation as both sides wrestled with a national security case that has potentially far-reaching consequences. This is Biden era. Biden was the president. And the story is that there were months of dispute between the Justice Department prosecutors and the FBI agents who were working the case. At that time, we knew about it. We knew that they weren't thrilled about it. And this is only a couple of months after they did the raid. I think the raid was in August, if memory serves, of 2022, August or early September.
That's about right.
Right? I'm just remembering because my timeline was I sat down with Dan Bongino to talk about it, and it was very front of mind for him at that moment. And I've been consistent the whole time. And the two things that are true is they should have never done a search warrant on Mar-a-Lago. That should have been, a request of surrender of documents, and they should have continued negotiating. National Archives, there's no reason for them to have executed a search warrant with armed agents. But the minute that you introduced armed agents to do a search warrant, there's nothing surprising about them having a deadly force policy written on the damn op order, because that's what all the op orders say ever since Ruby Ridge. And so this very unsophisticated series of people, and Solomon is part of it, and Julie Kelly has gone out there and she did like a, pour one on the ground for the suspendables. It's like, look, you stupid dimwit. You've never done a single FBI search warrant in your life. You've never sat through an ops briefing for a search warrant. You didn't know at this time that you were talking about it that the FBI doesn't have a freaking uniform. And you've been on searches. You've seen people do searches, George. You ever seen how many FBI agents show up with that raid jacket on? Is that a common thing in your experience?
It's 50-50.
Do they do it in Boston?
There's some designator that, if they're wearing body armor or something that indicates who they work for.
You wear body armor, so your body armor says who you work for. It's like the green FBI thing. But I've never put on the blue jacket, ever.
No.
I've never worn one. Not a single search warrant. I've never seen anyone wear one on a search warrant. Usually because people are trying to make sure that you can see the front and back placards from their body armor, and they want to be able to access their weapons or their med kit, or whatever else. Right. I don't get it. So anyway, this is interesting though, because here we are on the screen talking about a story that, interestingly enough, Carol D. Lenanig, is that her name? Lenanig? I've seen her writing. She's been doing some stuff in the New York Times recently as well. And I sent this over to Ken Delaney yesterday, and I was like, Fox News is scooping Carol 2 years later on her own story, 2.5 years later. It's slop. And I'm going to give you more of it because as you talked about the churn, you talked about the attorneys. Look at this one. This is from June of 2023. Testimony reveals that senior FBI officials expressed concerns about the Trump raid. We've done this before, people. This is not a breaking exclusive story for Fox News. This is Jim Jordan, who's also the master of doing nothing but asking for money for it. And he sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland about this. I mean, tell me I'm crazy, but I thought everybody knew that the FBI had some serious disagreements at the Washington field office versus headquarters versus DOJ Maine. Is that just me that thought this?
No, but it surprises me that people forget about it so quickly.
That's what it is. Maybe that's why people will eat the slop, because they forget.
But we're not talking about long periods of time here. Right?
Nope.
I mean, we started off this podcast talking about a change made to the FBI almost a quarter of a century ago. Right? That might as well have taken place during the time of Epictetus. You know, they don't know.
They don't.
But 2 years ago, oh my God, that's ancient history.
Here's what happened during that time when this disagreement came out, because guess what? They had to go and defend themselves. And here's Merrick Garland claiming exactly what needed to be said, because as was testified, this is from the documents that include mentioning me, which is really weird. Tom Massey doing a transcribed interview of Steve D'Antuono, who was my former boss and was the assistant director in charge of the Washington field office during the pipe bomb case and others, and also during the Mar-a-Lago raid. And he says as follows. He stated he had absolutely no idea why the decision was made that the Miami field office was not taking lead and why Washington field continued. Again, Mar-a-Lago would be in the vicinity, what we call the AOR, right, of the Miami field office. And for some reason, Washington field took lead on it. He stated the FBI learned a lot of stuff from Crossfire Hurricane, notably that the FBI headquarters doesn't work investigations and is supposed to be the field office working on these investigations. And yet we found out that headquarters was driving the Mar-a-Lago case. And the attorney general went out and clarified, like, this is my doing. This is not an exclusive for Fox yesterday.
There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly.
Got it. Okay. And again, there was additional documentation. This is coming from 3/1/23, again, citing the Washington Post, but this is actually in the congressional record. So lest people think that I just pulled it out of the Internet archives, it's also something members of Congress committed to the record. Somebody probably did one of those, unanimous consent requests. Can I enter this into the record? So we have a left-leaning source in the Washington Post reported this 2.5 years ago. And meanwhile, we've got the slop that this was just created here. Here it is. Why are they putting this slop out is, I guess, the bigger question, George. You're an info guy. Well, is there like a benefit to the American people to see this thing right now?
The only guess I can make is that they ran out of new slop that they can feed the American people. Serious.
So now we're just doing recycled slop.
We're just recycling the same old CRAP for people to consume. That's the only thing I can think of, because obviously Australia is not big news. Gaza is no longer big news. Brown University, I mean, I don't know, there may be some interest in that, but I mean, they just seem to continue to recycle this. And there probably isn't any money yet for the law firms for Brown University. Now, once they figure out that Brown's covering up and somebody gets an eye on that $8 billion trust fund that they have, then maybe there'll be some interest on it. But right now, there's no money to be made on what's currently going on in the news.
Here's
so
another
we're going to
story.
churn this.
Here's another story about the exact same thing. This is June 20th, 2023. FBI resisted opening a probe into Donald Trump's role in January 6th for more than a year, probably for the reasons that you would think that you don't want to do a politically motivated thing, and probably the headquarters press. So we actually have this story again. And this is also, shocker people, look at this. This is Washington Post. These are archived. They'll be in the links for the show description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on X, you'll have to go over to either Rumble or YouTube to find this, and you can always find it at locals as well. The whole point is that this is not news at all. And to watch them go out and trot this out, like, we're now going to give you some news thing. And this is the same story that I seen John Solomon do. He's like, we got breaking stuff that's happening in the Clinton case. It's like, well, breaking how? This is old news. You didn't do law enforcement. You did intelligence. George, do you have any idea who decides what is and what is not probable cause?
Well, it's put in front of a judge or a grand jury, right? They decide, or unless you actually observe something happening.
That's right. And so who signs off on the search warrant to go in there? It turns out it's a magistrate judge. We know all about this particular magistrate judge, but lest people think otherwise, let me just give you the quick question. If you were to type in who decides if there's enough probable cause on a search warrant, this is the same thing for state and federal. Certainly for federal, it's a magistrate judge. They decide. They read it and they go, yeah, you've got it. That's enough PC. I'm willing to sign off on this warrant. And at that point, it's legally binding. Now, you can go out there and appeal. They do this all the time in criminal cases. And during the appeals time, they say, well, we think the warrant should have been thrown out because there was no PC up front, and therefore all the fruits of the poisonous tree from that warrant that should have never been given. You can make that argument, but I'm not 100% sure they actually did it that way. And if they did, they didn't get a ruling that said yes. So we're now going to re-adjudicate something that happened years ago. And the only reason I can think of it is because the optics are terrible and people are losing. Am I crazy on that? Is this like a loser's fight at this point?
I don't think you missed it entirely, but I do think that also there's some evidence of laziness here. In order to have a story, right, you have to do some investigation, and then you have to make clear to your audience what it is that you're trying to communicate. So by resurrecting old stuff, you just blow some dust off of it, maybe put some polish on it, and you trot that out there, and it's easy for a lazy person to do.
Well, that's what slop is. It's just sloppy. It's a sloppy op.
Sloppy and lazy.
All right. So here we got this now as well. This story, did you see this? I think I gave it to you early so you can kind of get a little read on it. This is the new slop that I saw yesterday, which blew my mind. Emerald Robinson had a compilation of like a dozen cabinet members going out and saying, Susie Wiles is the best, and we love her so much. She's so awesome. And I don't know if Susie Wiles is the best or not the best. But I know what slop is, and I know that you're doing a sloppy info op where every single person goes out there and punches out this junk. And they all sat for this photograph, by the way. This photographer was Christopher Anderson, and they used it for the cover of Vanity Fair for this story, Eye of the Hurricane. Eye of the Hurricane is really good, too. Okay, and here's the story, okay? Susie Wiles, J.D. Vance, and the Junkyard Dogs, the White House Chief of Staff on Trump's second term, part 1 of 2. And the White House has gone out and contested it. The others have tried to contest it. They've all been super upset that this was written the way that it was written. What did people expect? Like, I got an email from Vanity Fair the other day. I might actually read it to you guys. I got an email from Vanity Fair. They wanted to do I think it was Vanity Fair. They wanted to do a profile on something I didn't know about. And I went like, why would I answer that question? Like, who do you think you're talking to? And you think I don't know what Vanity Fair is? Apparently Susie Wiles does not know. That's the claim we're supposed to believe, which also sounds like slop. What do you think, George? What's going on here? Why did she give a sit-down interview?
I have no idea. I mean, she's not a stupid woman by any means.
But really
she
savvy.
is an old school Republican. She's out of that Bush family Episcopalian northeastern population.
Mm-hmm.
So, without even reading the article, when I heard she was appointed, way back when, to me, she's seen less of a chief of staff and more as a gatekeeper to keep an eye on Trump so that the traditional Republican Party can survive until they're done with him. I don't think she did it by accident, and I don't think she's stupid.
On the morning of November the 4th, 2025, an off-year election day, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles was meeting with the Oval Office, the president, and his top advisors, men she calls the core team. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff. And the agenda was twofold: ending the congressional filibuster and forcing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from power. And as she related it later, Donald Trump was withholding the filibuster while Wiles stood up and started for the door, and Trump eyed her. Is this an emergency that you have to leave? He demanded. It was nothing of the sort. But Wiles left Trump guessing. She replied, "It's an emergency. It doesn't involve you." And with that, she departed and left the Oval Office. Trump has called her the most powerful woman in the world. She's unelected. She's chosen. And as you said, a lot of people have accused of gatekeeping there. I don't know if that's true or not. It wouldn't surprise me to imagine that the establishment wants to make sure that somebody is there to make sure that the ship doesn't turn too hard one way or another. And that seems like it works against everything that people think they got in Donald Trump because they thought they got a disruptor. And this is a stabilizer.
Well, regardless of the article, if you look at the evidence that's in front of us, it does look like she is shielding Donald Trump from his own agenda, as evidenced by some of his Truth Social posts. It's like, Don, are you not seeing what's going on here? And you're not seeing this disconnect that's taking place? And, so in many ways, it seems like a repeat of Trump 45, where people are actively working to undermine his agenda from within his administration. Maybe not to the scope and scale that it was under his first administration, but it does appear. I'm not saying it is because I don't have any evidence to show one way or the other, but it appears that some people are trying to shield him from his agenda, and I would put Susie Wiles at the top of that list.
One would have to think that. This is kind of interesting. So this massive push goes on social media yesterday to the point where when I opened up my feed, I think I actually have it on my desktop here. I won't be able to show you guys, but I'll be able to read you off a couple of these things because it was pretty telling. The entirety of my feed looked like this. DNI Tulsi Gabbard. I haven't known Susie Wiles for very long, but my first meeting with her and my very frequent conversations with her now, I've always appreciated how she's a straight shooter, provides good counsel, focuses on solution. Unlike White House chiefs of staffs, blah, 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 blah. This is because Susie Wiles says the article published this morning is disingenuously framed and it's a hit piece on me and the finest president and White House staff and cabinet in history. Significant text was disregarded and much what I said, blah, blah, blah. And then you got Corey Lewandowski saying, I know for a fact that the story is trash. Susie is an incredibly gifted person who serves the POTUS with honor and distinction. What a shameful job the media does to good people. Fight on, Chief. Pete Hegseth goes on and says, this is what the left does. Trash and smear our best and most effective people. And they do it to President Trump daily. And now Chief Susie Wiles, she's the most trusted, most professional, most effective chief of staff in my lifetime. You saw other people saying that she's the first woman here and it's super powerful. And then this is the response that the writer gave on CNN last night. And I actually see this as being probably accurate.
Non-denial, denial. They're not contesting any of the substance of the piece because they know it's true.
Is that because you recorded the interviews?
And every interview was recorded. Everything is on tape. And so they know that they just can't go there.
All right. To you, Scott Jennings.
If you recorded the interview and you know that you're materially correct and the things you said are accurate quotes, even if you frame it wrong, like what did you think when you go and talk to people that are not going to be friendly to you? I do this all the time, by the way. I record my own interviews knowing that when I talk to certain people that it might come out ugly. And I just go, that's just kind of the cost of doing business. If you talk to people who don't agree with you, they're going to hear what you said in a way that you didn't think that you conveyed it. And then you leave it up to the audience.
Yeah, never attribute to conspiracy what you can attribute to incompetence. And it just, like I said, Susie Wiles is not a stupid woman. She knew exactly what she was getting into. Nobody refuted the substance of the interview. Was it the only question I think that really needs to be answered is, was it an unforced error or was it intentional?
That's the biggest question right now.
What's that?
I said that's the biggest question because we see things that I think look like competency in certain areas, and they look like people focusing on that agenda that you talked about, and we go like, oh yeah, that's it. That's what should be going on. Can we get more of that? And whenever you start getting some of that, you get slop from the other side, which just looks swampy and screwy, and you get excuse theater and things that don't make any sense to me whatsoever. And again, you're interviewing with Vanity Fair. Like, what did you think their perspective was? There's a bigger sort of problem that I keep seeing in this administration, which is a PR move. It's nonstop PR. And I think I said it yesterday to somebody, maybe I said it on my program, that the announcement of a program is the effect. Like that is the result you get. Like the headline is the result that they're looking for. They're not actually looking for action or substantive movement. And so you end up in a spot like this. That isn't the number one rule of politics. If you're explaining, you're losing. Like things either stand on their own or they don't.
That's pretty much everything in life. And the more you go on and on and on, the more clear it becomes that you are laying out a line of baloney.
Baloney. Let's do a quick little sub analysis here because I think this is actually very good. This is a longer clip that I'm going to give just a piece of it. This is Owen Schroyer. Well, I'm fond of Owen. I like Owen as a person, and his new hair looks funny. He looks like he looks kind of like Thor. Somebody said he looks like if Thor from the Marvel Avengers just got a credit card with a 30% APR. I don't know what that means exactly, but it made me laugh because I read that this morning. There's some really clever people on social. He's summing up what he thinks is the failure, and I think a lot of people have this. Now he's kind of a doomsayer, as am I. We're kind of probably as are you, George. We're kind of crotchety people even before our time. We're punching at George Hill levels of bitterness without having all the requisite years. Owen Schroyer on this one. Here we go.
This is the state of the Trump administration. This is the state of MAGA. They've totally lost it. They're punch drunk. They're high on their own supply. They feel untouchable. They feel they can do no wrong. They feel they can do no evil. They think they're beyond any reproach here. And it's Trump's response to the Rob Reiner death that really sealed it for me. that really said this is where the administration is at, and they seem to have lost all touch with the outside world. And perhaps you could say, well, this is the equal and opposite reaction to everything the left has done, and that's the excuse that's been given, to which I reply, I thought we were supposed to be better. Like, I thought that was the whole thing. You know, they say when they go low, we kick them. We say when they go low, we maintain the high ground. Not anymore. Now MAGA is not even interested in the high ground. They can't even see the high ground. They can't touch the high ground. They think they're on the high ground, but they're nowhere near it.
And he goes on. I may post that over for people to take a look at, because I think it's of value to kind of do a critical self-analysis. Like, did they lose it? Did they lose the thread? And like I said, the frustrating thing is I think there are people that are actually getting it done and seem like they have the right messaging. And Pete Hegseth seems like one of them. I think Secretary Wright seems to be on the right path when it talks to DOE. The people that I hear the least from, and when I hear from them, I'm like, oh, that was well thought out. That was sensible. That was not reactionary. You're not explaining a losing. You're defining a policy that is to come. And then we actually generally sort of see the policy, and we see the screaming on the left from it. But if your move is like, I have to react aggressively and I need to get everybody to do a tweet storm because I gave an interview to an unfavorable news outlet and it didn't look good at the end, it's not a great plan.
I am not Garrett O'Boyle, but I believe it's somewhere in scripture that you'll be known by your deeds. And, I started reading about this back in the 90s, that we have become a celebrity obsessed culture. Mm-hmm. And when you embrace celebrity culture, you wind up in a very vacuous position where you're bringing people into positions of authority that have no substance, no gravitas. And this is what we got 30 plus years later, are people with no substance, no anything to get it done. This is why we see recycled slop. We are living in a celebrity culture, and we are being led by the weakest of people.
I'm going to show something on the screen here in a second, George, that I wanted to put up for people to have an idea of how bad this sloppy social media op looked like. This was just a piece of it. There's actually 3 more in this particular I think there's 4 more actually. But these are all people that are responding to the story that Susie Wiles voluntarily did as an interview. And so you've got cabinet level secretaries, and this is Chris Wright. So again, we just mentioned him. I think he generally does a good job. You've got Doug Burgum, who's been pretty quiet. Scott Bessent, who's been out there talking. People I don't even know about. Lori Chavez DeRimmer. You got Lindsey McMahon, who's still out there at Department of Education, which I thought was supposed to be gone. Pash Patel. Fake news comes after you when you're effective. Sure, Kash, whatever you say. Brooke Rollins, Sean Duffy, Russ Vaught, Lee Zeldin. So cabinet, sub-cabinet level people just going all out. The White House press secretary, and they're all pushing the same sort of like coordinated slop push on social media, as though that actually has anything to do with it. Just shut your mouth and do your job. Here's one of those examples that I was looking at, and I went like, okay, if there was going to be a real problem, which is what we thought we were going to get addressed, how about we actually address that problem? And this was one of the crazy things out there. Our failure and our esprit de corps in the military. The wrong priorities when it comes to war fighters, which is what I think Hegseth has actually appropriately kind of pivoted on. I also thought, call me crazy, George, but I actually thought we were going to focus in on the same sort of weaponization of DOJ. And the answer wasn't, we're going to pivot back and get rid of people who had a gay pride flag on their desk in Los Angeles. We would just say, hey, new show in town, keep your politics at home, shut your mouth and do your job. Everybody do excellent. That's it. Anybody who's doing excellence from here on out will be noted for it. And anybody, that did something that's criminal, you're going to lose your job and we're going to prosecute you. That's it. More later. Here's Pete Hegseth, I think, saying the right thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like the chaplain corps and the radicalization of certain parts of the military were where we thought they were doing good. And I saw this come out, I think, yesterday.
I'm here to tell you about a real problem facing our nation's military. It's one you're probably not aware of, but it's a really important one. And it's been going on for far too long. The weakening of our chaplain corps. You see, chaplains are intended to be the spiritual and moral backbone of our nation's forces. George Washington established the chaplain corps in 1775, one of his first actions as General of the Continental Army. Congress authorized chaplains for the Navy that very same year. In Washington's general orders, he explained their importance, quote, The blessing and protection of heaven are at all times necessary, but especially so in times of public distress and danger. For about 200 years, the Chaplain Corps continued its role as the spiritual leader of our service members, serving our men and women in times of hardship and ministering to their souls. But sadly, as part of the ongoing war on warriors, in recent decades, its role has been degraded. In an atmosphere of political correctness and secular humanism, chaplains have been minimized, viewed by many as therapists instead of ministers. Faith and virtue were traded for self-help and self-care. If you need proof, just look at the current Army Spiritual Fitness Guide. In well over 100 pages, it mentions God one time.
I'll cut away from it. It's actually a pretty well delivered message. Obviously, he's a professional. He used to do that for Fox and whatnot. What do you make of that as somebody who spent a lot of time in uniform?
The chaplains were a crucial part of not only me personally when I was on active duty, but to my Marines and then later on my sailors. But we have seen in really not that long of a span of churches with their rainbow flags and so-called Christian organizations making hundreds of millions of dollars funneling illegals into our country. I don't know what has happened to the Christian faith. We see the current pontiff in Rome embracing Islam, which would require a complete ignorance of history and our interactions with the Islamic world. They are emblematic, I guess, or representative of the greater what we see in our religious leadership throughout the country and throughout the Western world. They've lost their way, and it's sad because no one needs a better no one needs a good, strong chaplain more than a man or woman in uniform that's having a hard time either with their teenage years or with some horror that they just saw the day before.
What Pete Hegseth did on that screen, that's officially produced, sanctioned by government, pressed out by their own media. I would call that on every level propaganda. It doesn't mean that it's bad. Is that slop?
No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But people would rather consume slop, because if that were not the case, we would see more of that video than something from John Solomon or Sean Hannity.
Yeah, the distracting. I'm going to give you an example, folks, that do not know some of the secular humanistic and some of the things that he was talking about and the lack of mentioning of God in the Chaplain Corps. Because the key is there evidence that the problem that you are saying is a real problem? And so a lot of people want to attack a problem that doesn't exist. And if you do that, then you can always beat it because it's just, it's a paper tiger. It doesn't have any kind of substance. This sounds truly crazy. I bet you haven't heard this. This comes from Sam Shoemate's Twitter feed. When I went and listened to this yesterday, I was like, all right, I'm definitely playing this. I've never heard anything so crazy. I don't know when this started in the Chaplain Corps, but thankfully it wasn't there when I was in the military, but my time was pretty short. George, buckle up. This one's gonna get you seething.
I did have a question. Let me find it. I wrote it down. I'm a queer chaplain. I'm actually one of 7 in the Chaplain Corps that's openly gay. I'm also married, but I'm also facing incredible oppression and opposition in this Navy. I joined the Navy to help those who are queer and also those who are spiritual, non-religious. But I'm afraid truly not only for what will happen to me, my career, my future here in this Navy as an openly queer person, but also my shipmates. I constantly see failure in this, not only in my own story, but so many of those who are also queer or spiritually non-religious. I don't see a specific outreach from the Chaplain Corps to connect the spiritual pluralism that is more represented in the conservative Christians who dominate the Chaplain Corps, causing such a disconnect in so many. Sir, I'm asking is, how do you plan to address this? How do you plan to create a less homophobic Navy, or maybe more specifically, a less homophobic Chaplain Corps? Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you first and foremost for your service. Thank you for your courage and just raising that question as well too. And we're all God's children, and I know that we live at a time, obviously, where homophobia, is still very much ever present in many, many circles. And we got to get to a better place. The one thing I'd like to sort of ask you to focus on, and I certainly appreciate the passion that you bring to the table on this subject. Also stop and think about where we have been compared to where we are today.
Senior Chief, what say you about this?
I'd like to know who was responding to that chaplain, because the way it should have went is, you know what, let's take this discussion offline, and I would fire that person by the end of the day, the following day. They don't belong in that position. I'm not saying that there's no room for homosexuals in a functioning society. Just don't demand that I say that it's normal, and you should not be in positions of spiritual leadership. That's, the
Spiritual but not religious.
I'm sorry?
It's spiritual but not religious.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I say. The rainbow flags in front of the churches and all are welcome. It's, what's the word that you've been using? Suicidal empathy.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it.
It's so hard to listen to that stuff though. Because it's just antithetical to anything that I understood about why anybody would sign up for the military. And then they wondered why they had recruiting problems, because you're not going to get the guys that come out of, the guys that I trained with going through the pararescue program. I'd see them before I even joined and went over that way. And I always called them corn-fed American heroes. They were just a bunch of just burly dudes who looked like they were what you thought heroes might look like. They were just a bunch of kids who came from cornfields in Iowa, and they came out of city streets, but they'd been brawlers, and they did hard things, and they said, what's the hardest thing that I can do, and who will it help? I'm in. That's what I want to do. And then you're not going to get that if you got that guy out there as your
tough love is still love, and that chaplain needs to be shown some tough love, and chaplains need to be able to dispense tough love and tell people no, that's wrong, and let's get you on the right path.
All of that is to say that there are people who are not doing slop, even though you're doing propaganda. And I just wanted to give that as an example that everything I see that's propaganda. And is it fair to say that the Pete Hegseth thing is basically, if it's government approved messaging from a government camera, that's propaganda, right?
100%.
Okay. But not slop. We didn't have to put our slop down.
No, but you know what? It shows it's not slop because people aren't consuming it in vast quantities, because that seems to be the appetite today.
The appetite is for slop. All right. So that being said, we're going to do a quick little pivot over to actual slop, and maybe the reason that I can't handle what did you say? What do you have a thing about trains and Candace Owens? What is your Candace Owens trains analogy? I feel like you have an explanation for when people have done something.
Their choo-choo train jumped the track. Okay. It's a nice way of saying that they've completely lost their flipping mind.
Okay. Well, when you're around people that do that, or if you're really fixated on people losing your mind and you start sort of normalizing that this sort of crazy thing that people are talking about is actually what real people talk about, the consumption of slop can turn you to slop. I didn't follow Megyn Kelly forever, but I don't think she was always doing slop. Is that fair? Is that a guess?
Yeah, but what did our moms used to tell us growing up? You are what you eat.
You are what you eat. So
yeah, I mean, if you treat your body like blank, what do you expect?
That's good. All right. So if you consume slop, you can become slop. If you watch people's choo-choo train jump the tracks and you spend time around it, your train may also jump the tracks. I got this clip. I understand that it's a little bit out of context. It doesn't make a difference because what it is saying and the claims within it are inherently wild. When I saw this, I was like, I can't even believe this lady recorded this. This is the lady who brought on Alexis Wilkins to pre-bunk the story about what she's doing with Kash Patel, and gave she gave a female Sean Hannity. Here's what happens after a little bit of slop. This is only a couple months later. And if you have little ones around or if you're at work, turn down the volume or put on some headphones. That's your warning.
To the hateful people whom I used to call friends, who have been all over the internet trying to shame me and say that no one should ever listen to this program again because I haven't spoken out on the Erica Candace conflict. I don't have any pearls of wisdom other than go fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves. You have no fucking clue what's going on. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. And your world is so myopically online. You fail to understand there are real humans involved here. And actually being able to touch grass and have relationships with them, which is something I'm doing. could prove to actually benefit all involved. Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't at all, but it's at least got a shot. I'm not sure your Twitter shame game has gotten anything of value done.
That's kind of harsh. I consider Ryan Matta a friend, and I take umbrage to the manner in which she addressed him.
Is that directly to Ryan Matta? Is he friends with Megyn Kelly? Oh God, that's really funny. Oh, that's so silly. I just was listening to that and I'm like, who are you using this? She has millions of followers on YouTube. What are we doing there? Why are we being? That seems like that seems like that should have been a text message or a phone call.
There's your head voice and there's your outside voice.
We're going back to the GWAT. This is the beginning. This is the George Bush explanation, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, there's there's inside words and then there's outside words. And sometimes when your inside words come outside, then you got a problem because the outside words are heard by everybody or something to that effect.
I have made it a goal my entire life, probably since before a teenager, never to have to apologize for something I said. And I do that by thinking ahead about what while I'm speaking about what I'm about to say so that I don't have to apologize afterwards. So any lawyer who's watching this or anybody on the 7th floor, if I said it, I meant it.
You've been in that scenario where you've put out some tweets, they pulled you into some congressional testimony and you had that exact experience where people just read your words back to you. Like you were going to change your mind.
Right. Explain this. I'm like, I don't know. It's pretty clear. It's perfect English. It's properly punctuated. What further explanation are you looking for here?
I had a moment like that when I was being deposed by James O'Keefe's lawyers. And they're like, what does this mean? And I'm like, first of all, I'm responding to this Buzzy B 6591. And they're like, well, what is FAOD? And I was like, oh, it's commonly understood to mean fuck off and die. FOAD. And they were like, ugh. And they're writing down the timestamp, clip that, show it. It's like, yeah, how did you think I talk? I'm not apologizing for something that I say like that, but I did it intentionally. It's not like I was like, just say things. That felt really wild and kind of emotional. I feel like it's the same thing that we saw last night for those of you who watched. And if you guys want to join us tomorrow, we'll do a whole watch party. You guys can call in and join me during the digestion or ingestion or indigestion of this slop. And George, this was the preview of the slop. And so we played this yesterday. I'm going to play it again.
We are so excited to be joined by Kash and his beautiful girlfriend, Alexis. So I just want to clarify, you're not Jewish.
I'm not.
You are not from Israel.
No.
So how did we get to, are you a Mossad agent?
That's a great question.
Where's her ring? Just to clarify, how often has he traveled to see you since January 20th? Has there been one moment where you're like, you can't make this up?
You didn't watch this, I'm guessing.
I've seen that clip. I've seen other clips as well. I didn't watch the whole thing in its entirety.
My wife fell asleep twice in 39 minutes while it was on the screen. So it was riveting.
It's gross and it's highly scripted. And as you pointed out yesterday, and I agree as a seasoned interrogator, that the body language is not good. The laughter seems forced. It's gross on every level, and therefore it was concocted. Someone told them to do it, and they went out and did it.
While we were watching it, my wife looks over and said, this whole podcast is trying to address you in the same way that Megyn Kelly may have been trying to address our friend Ryan Matta. It just felt like it was 100%. We're going to go out and do this thing. We're going to show Kyle Seraphin what's up by answering all of his questions. They kept nebulously referring to the media and social media, which I took very personally. And maybe I'm wrong. Here was Kash Patel doing coverage by numbers. Remember, we talked about it a little bit earlier. 20,000 text messages went out, George, so everything is fine. That's how you earn $63,000 a year. This is how you keep
a week.
A week. Sorry. Yes, $63,000 a week. Good correction. This is how you keep your private jet access. By the way, I have every reason to believe that the private jet, November 708 Juliet Hotel, went down to Savannah, which is where they do the modifications and refurb of Gulfstreams. And I think they pulled the ADS-B transponder out of it because it hasn't moved since it went down there, which may actually be not only that's really dangerous. That's how we end up with Blackhawks running into things. But anyway, I'm almost positive that this entire whatever this was, this PR nightmare that they decided to do, the awkward body position and all this stuff. I think we counted in an hour, Alexis touched Kash one time, and it was incidental contact. It wasn't intentional. The whole time that we were watching, I just noticed that I had my hand either on my wife's, arm, or it was in her hand. So that's how people who are around each other all the time and are comfortable. And we're just laying in bed watching this thing. Here's defense by numbers. Let's give an opportunity to do this like totally casual, like just a dude and his girl on a couch talking. And here's some FBI statistics to help you out and understand why we love each other.
And I think the work that we're proud of, I mean, literally every single week we have a huge takedown, a huge arrest, either in the counterterrorism space, espionage space. We've arrested 35% more spies from foreign adversaries this year alone than last year. Our domestic terrorism arrests...
What countries are they coming from?
DPRK, Russia, China, Iran. Our domestic terrorism arrests this year alone are up 30%. So when people are hitting us saying, you're not doing enough for domestic terrorism, we're actually doing a lot more. And then there's the work that just doesn't get noticed. And I mentioned it earlier. The work we're doing against child predators online. These sycophants that are preying on children as young as 8, 9, 10, 11 years old and causing them to commit suicide and mutilate themselves and do animal crushing, all these other disgusting things. Those cases, the arrests are up 20 and 30% alone. And so the Bureau is doing that work across the country, and we try to showcase it as often as we can because I think that's what the American public wants to see. And I believe that that's what President Trump was voted into office to deliver, and he's delivering it. And if they focused on that rather than us, maybe more people would see the great work that we're doing. But it's not going to stop, and so neither are we.
And neither are we. George Hill, can you give me some body language analysis?
He is speechifying from the couch next to a woman he claims to be have his life partner.
Partner in life.
Oh, is it? Oh, in life. Okay. Whatever. I like how he uses the term "we" all the time. We used to say in the Marine Corps, "Who's this we shit? What, do you got a mouse in your pocket?" Like he is the front man for the FBI. He doesn't or shouldn't be managing anything. So I'm not sure who this we is that he keeps on referring to. Mm-hmm. And if they're doing that good, then they don't need integrated program management, and they don't need any of the bullshit metrics that they've been, writing bonus checks towards if they're doing that well. So like you said earlier, there are liars, damn liars, and statisticians. We just listened to a statistician who can't stand the woman sitting next to him and vice versa.
Java Daily just asked the simple question: why was he up talking the entirety of that interview thing that he did? First of all, the first 30 something minutes are 100% Kash taking the answers, even though they're asked to both of them, which is not bad if you're a man who's actually a leader. And that's kind of the way things are set up in the household. It turns out they don't share a household. And every single thing he said sounded like a male Valley girl. I don't know any other way. That's what up talking is to me. I know they call it vocal fry and other things, but he ended every sentence like a question. And then he said some things like, I've got this.
If they ever ended every sentence with A,
I do like A.
Our statistics are up, A. I'd be happier with that.
I had a guy in the military. He was one of our cadre, and I can't remember what program it was that I was going through, but I had two cadres. I worked CCT and I worked at Pararescue, and we had like characters that were always like schoolhouse guys are characters, and they do things because they're not used to being public speakers and they're not trained to be drill sergeants, so they just do weird shit, and it's almost always hysterical. I had a guy who I think we called him Sergeant K, and I don't remember what his real name was, and I don't remember what he looked like. I just know what he sounded like. And so George, he'd go like this. He'd go, this morning, I asked you guys to get together your equipment, okay? And everybody was supposed to be here at 0500 in position and formation, okay? What I need to see now is you drop and hit your faces on the ground. Drop! Okay. And here's the problem. You're not doing what you're told, okay? And he would just say "cape" at the end of everything, and it was hysterical. And we would just we'd be doing push-ups and suffering and sweating and uncomfortable, but we'd laugh because somebody would look over at you and you'd be down in the you hold the plank position while he's yelling at you for the next set, or he hasn't recovered you, and you look over and you go "cape," and they'd fall out laughing, and of course then you get your butt kicked again. There's real things people do, these little ticks, and A would have been better than ending with a question at the top of everything. Also, can I get a working definition of the word sycophant? Would you do that for me?
A working definition? You mean
Well,
What do
he
you mean,
said
like
that we're at the FBI and we're going after these online sycophants who torture children. Can you explain to me why he would use that word? What that means? Or does he not know what the word sycophant is?
I don't think he knows what the word sycophant means, because every time I hear someone from the Trump administration, even people that I like, begin every sentence with the words, thanks to the great leadership of Donald Trump.
That's sycophantic.
Which I find absolutely nauseating. So I think he's got that word confused with Wait, what is Princess Bride? I think you don't know what the meaning of that word is.
Inconceivable. Yeah. So I think there's a possibility, George. I think it's a real possibility that he thinks the word sicko is short for sycophant. My wife made that observation to me. I don't have that kind of she was a counselor, so she talked to a lot of people that had problems and stuff. I don't actually have the insight into the simple mind that existed there. But I think the word sicko, the long form in his mind is sycophant.
Wow.
Okay. And that's that is not what that word means there. Okay. You're using the word wrong, and that is not how we do it. We're going to need you to drop. Okay. And I'm going to need you to run. You're going to be working on Saturday. Okay. And so anyway, that's all that was really awkward listening to it. There's some other fun ones. So we did the numbers, and that's how we know everything is good. And so now we've got the real crux of the issue, which is why they did this whole thing. If you're Katie Miller and you are the wife of Stephen Miller, who was referenced in the Vanity Fair piece, if you are a Jewish wife who says that people are threatening you and bad things can happen, then you can ask people the question. But if you're on the Kyle Seraphin show, if you are part of Elijah Schaffer's organization, if you're a person on Twitter randomly who just posts factual information about what goes on at PragerU and the fact that certain people have worked for kind of an illogical series of employers, you cannot ask this question. Let's do the question, which there used to be a thing called the JQ. Do you know what the JQ is?
No.
The JQ is the Jewish question.
Oh.
And actually, I think those people are all sort of like in this category of folks that question the Holocaust and a bunch of other things. But if you're a Jewish wife of the deputy chief of staff, you can ask a JQ. I don't know if this is the JQ, but this is why they did the entirety of that interview, and she teased it out in the preview.
So I just want to clarify, you're not Jewish.
I'm not.
You are not from Israel.
No.
So how did we get to, are you a Mossad agent?
That's a great question. I too have that question for the internet, actually. You and me both. No, I'm not sure. I'm not Jewish. I'm Christian. I'm Armenian. So, not really sure how we got there. I've never been to Israel. I'd love to go. It's just, the stamp isn't even on my passport, and I'm just as confused as everyone else is.
Because the internet, to this point, of the personal attacks on you and your relationship are not only from the far left, but are from the far right as well. And how have you dealt with those attacks? Do you let it, are those things you guys discuss? Do you let it roll off your sleeve? Do you not read it? I think there's a lot of people out there, especially young women, who are attacked in other ways, from their friends, from their groups. And that's something we all struggle with, right, is how to handle that. And so going through what I think is a very public version of that. I'd love to know how you deal with this.
I think that it's very important to first and foremost remember that the people who actually love you, my boyfriend, my family, those are the people who their opinions matter. And then everything else kind of splinters off from that, and you can decide how much value you want to place on other people's opinion. I also understand that there's a benefit in whatever media spin, whatever side is choosing to make. If this side wants to say, I'm a spy, it's because they're trying to attack him through me. If the far left is trying to spin me as a party girl, it's because it's, first of all, hilariously untrue, and also because they want to get to him. So I try not to take it personally. Of course, it affects, your headspace, it affects your work, it affects aspects of your life. I can't pretend it doesn't. It's horrible. But I think remembering that the opinions of the people who actually love you and know you are what matter the most.
Reactions.
Do Kash's feet touch the floor when he's sitting on that couch?
Unclear. Not real sure.
Okay. I mean, people who know you and then love you. Love comes after know. I mean, it's just the whole thing's scripted. They've done a good job. I guess there's no teleprompter there, so they're going off of memory. But the whole thing is just nauseating.
I'm going to watch it.
You know, and who's putting this all together? Because we're seeing a lot of optics being managed between the Susie Wilds interview and
this one.
This,
yeah, it's my belief that this one was actually done by was set up by Erica Knight, who's his publicist and has been for a long time. I'm doing it without sound, so people can watch it without sound. Watch the body language, and you kind of give me what your reads are in real time there.
Oh yeah, his feet do touch the ground, but not by much.
Well, he's very uncomfortable right there. This is not.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. He looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, or he really needs a tube of Preparation H, one or the other.
It doesn't. Yeah. I'm just looking at the distance. I made the comment yesterday that I've seen defense attorneys sit closer to their rapist clients. It's just kind of it's kind of a weird posturing. The entirety of this felt, again, staged. I don't think Americans are actually buying this. And this is the funny part about it. I watched a bunch of folks that were on the MAGA right that were going, oh, this is amazing. Like, look at this thing. It debunks all your problems. And then anybody who wrote that, they got hit with slop labels. People were like, one of the questions was about the Israel thing. It's like, does the CIA only recruit people in Afghanistan that are Americans? Do you have to come to America to become somebody who works on behalf of our government somewhere? And this is the funny thing. And like, that doesn't mean that she is a Mossad agent or anything else. What it means is that you're doing like a straw man of an argument because either you don't know anything about how intel services work, and that's one of the things I'd love you to comment on, or you know Americans are so excited about slop that flies for them. You think they do, and you're going to feed it to them, that this nonsense of, oh, you have to be from a place or you have to have a certain religion to work on behalf of a cause. Is that what's going on?
Number one criteria, do they have access? And if they don't have access...
Well, what about religion, though? George, what about religion? Isn't that important?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, access, and if they don't have access, can they get access? And if they can't get access, what can we do to help them get access? That's the only criteria at the beginning stages for a potential asset.
Now,
and
does the FBI...
You know,
they actually run
review, what's the reporting?
Yeah, well, are there actually like assessments that people will do? Is there a type of thing that people could do to actually kind of get a pool of potential assets?
Type 5.
So the FBI does a Type 5 assessment.
Yeah.
And that means we're going to query the pool of human beings to see if there's a human being that fits the access profile that we require.
That's what we want, an access profile.
And then
matter
what do we do?
on sex,
then what do we,
religious, nationality, none of that.
Okay. And then what else do we want to know about them?
Veracity, because any source is going to do something for various reasons, whether it's financial, whether it's for love of country, whether it's for loathing of where they're at now, but what is their motivation? So level of action, how well can they be trusted, and what is their primary motivation? And then how can we leverage that to gain the reporting that we're looking for, or the intelligence that we're looking for?
What about stamps on a passport? Does that ever come into play?
Well, when you're doing your final, when you're going through the evaluation stage and you're trying to determine, the degree of which you can place trust in that potential access agent, looking at their travel history, then you would want to look at other individuals that may sync up with that travel history. And if I can, just real quickly, this is where the Chinese have a great advantage on us, where they do that through artificial intelligence, so that they can see that George and Kyle and Steve Friend were in Florida on the same time, for the filming of this movie, and we can, and use electronics to do that. So yeah, I know I went a little bit off script there, but I mean, you want to make sure that are they meeting with somebody else who's now, using them? They're going to double back that agent on you.
Do intelligence agencies have a requirement that they have to tell you what agency they represent and what they want you to work on behalf of?
Intelligence tell who's the you?
If an agency wants to recruit somebody, or if they're trying to obtain access to
there's no requirement.
They have to tell you. They have to say, "Look, I'm from the CIA, and I want you to come work for the CIA to do this thing." Right? That's how it has to be done, or no?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you have an agent, but you also have access agents as well. And I kind of mixed up my term, not mixed them up, but used them loosely. She's not an access agent. An access agent would be someone that you would use to run another person that's actually doing the collection.
Mm-hmm.
So you would want that degree of a cutout, for lack of a better term, that gives you some anonymity, so you don't know that your reporting is going to the CIA. You might think it's going to the Mossad or the MOIS or whoever, or MI6. So you don't know. So ideally, when you're running someone up against a target, ideally, you really would rather have them not know who that reporting is going to. And ideally, if you can get them to think that they're actually helping their own country, which you are also targeting at some other level, that would be an ideal situation.
Yeah, there's been popular reporting. People can find it. I've posted it before, but I'm happy to do it again. If you guys are interested, we could put it up over on Locals. That Israel on a regular basis has masqueraded as CIA agents, including in the United States, to recruit people. What I'm pointing out here is that this sloppy sort of lazy thinking that the world is simple and all you got to do is say, well, I've never been to this place and I don't know anybody there and I don't have this religion. That doesn't mean anything. And have you ever been bumped by a foreign intel service, George?
Yeah, I was bumped by Chinese intelligence not long after I reported to the Boston office on a couple of occasions.
Did they tell you that they were from the Chinese intelligence? They were from the MSS?
No. I mean, only after, did I, once I reported it to security, and since I had the counterintelligence program, worked closely with the SSA there, who's a great guy I'm still friends with to this day. He began his defense of the country as a missile launch officer for the Strategic Air Command. So, no, I didn't. I mean, it was suspicious behavior. It was innocuous. It seemed pretty genuine and accidental. But I've been in the business for so long. When I was, well, I'm not going to go into it, but the chief of station referred to that city as having more spies in it than Berlin at the height of the Cold War. So I've been exposed to this for quite some time.
You're kind of a sophisticated get if they could try to get someone who has the knowledge, the time frame, or whatever. But there are certainly people who have better access to information, even incidental, than you, and are not nearly as sophisticated. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And especially, I think the smarter you go up on the spectrum and you go down on the emotional IQ, if you go up on the IQ, but down on the, there seems to be somewhat of an inverse relationship between emotional IQ and real IQ. Mm-hmm. So I would put somebody like Elon Musk is obviously extremely high on the IQ, but maybe a little bit further down on the emotional IQ, and maybe less likely to smell something fishy coming their way. That's a good target.
And people who are not currently working in national security or not currently in a political regime still would be considered good gets by intel services. Would that be generally accurate? Historical information is still information.
The way I was trained way back when in the 70s, and then even going forward, with the Navy and then the NSA and the FBI, if something is out there in the classified, in the unclassified sphere, and you have knowledge of it, but you've attained that knowledge through classified means, you can't even comment on that. Mm-hmm. That's a violation of your, non-disclosure agreement and security protocols. So a person who's been out for a while, I mean, obviously there's a shelf life. I have a shelf life. I probably have exceeded that shelf life, but I could provide some veracity on things that they may be looking for, some degree of fidelity on. Actually, now that I think about it, there's probably a lot of things I can comment on.
I was going to say it's probably a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for.
Yeah,
on that
well,
one.
That's the other thing too, right? You deal with stuff for so long that you think nothing of it, and I wind up sometimes with this halting speech pattern, like I just did, where you're self-censoring. It's like, can't do that.
Yeah, not safe. Oops, that would have been over the line. Those kind of things. So yeah, I think that's a regular thing. All right, I just wanted to open up, and we'll do a full breakdown of this particular 51 minutes of pain, which was put out, of Slop. We'll do that tomorrow night. I don't want to do it on the main podcast. We've gone long enough today, and I've taken enough of George's time. So, George, tell people where they can follow you. Tell people where they can interact with you. All the good things, if you'd like. I'd appreciate it if you drop that on them.
So I didn't plan on entering the public sphere. So my moniker on Twitter or X is not as clear as everyone else's with the name. Mine is Senior Chief EXW, the EXW standing for Expeditionary Warfare. So Senior Chief EXW on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. I don't even remember what my handle is there, but it's all like outdoorsy stuff, hiking and ATVing and mountain climbing, things of that nature. Nothing, no politics outside of Twitter. Twitter's
just guy
100%
stuff like
politics.
That's right. Just guy stuff like dead
turkeys. Deer. Yep.
Turkeys.
Absolutely. Dead turkeys, pheasants. Yep.
Very good. All right, George, I appreciate you joining. Follow George at Senior Chief EXW on Twitter. Mix it up with him over there. You guys are missing out on good stuff, including just an awful lot of black pills, which you are a dispenser of, which is kind of where I like it. Thanks for jumping on with me this morning, buddy. I appreciate the perspective.
Thank you. Take care.
You too, bud. All right, so that's going to be it. But I will not leave you guys without something kind of fun and something kind of silly because I think this was heavy enough. Let me say before we go there, make sure you follow us over on Spotify. If you're watching, KyleSeraphinShow.com. If you're on Rumble, if you're on YouTube, if you're on X, give us a like. I think the same thing on Locals. Why not? If you guys want to be part of our programs, become a member of the channel on YouTube to do the call-in show tomorrow. Same story over on Locals. Same story on X. The number goes out to all those people. And we'll do a watch party breakdown and share the pain from that situation. Now, as promised, we can't go without something a little bit silly. And this is something silly. This was also one of the more serious parts of the podcast that I didn't play. We'll watch it tomorrow together. Has Alexis, the country music sensation, girlfriend of the director, written any love songs for Kash Patel? Well, has she?
Have you written any love songs about Kash?
You know, it's funny. I don't think anyone's ever asked that. Yeah, I have. But I'm waiting to come out with new music. Next year will be when I release more stuff.
What are you working on now?
Well, we're gonna let you a little sneak preview. We got an advanced copy of the song, and here it is.
Every movie makes, I see it on the screen. Private jets to Nashville, government gasoline. Making his booty call. Nashville, I see it all. Making his booty call. Making his booty call. Nashville, I see it all. Making his booty call. Making his booty call. Nashville, I see it all. It's not a petty crime. It's that from you and me. Kash Patel is flying high on our economy. Making his booty call. Nashville, I see it all. Making his booty call. Making his booty call. Nashville, I see it all. Making his booty call.
Yeah, we're a little sarcastic here, but it comes with the territory, especially when you have to write checks to lawyers because somebody can ask a question that you can't even discuss, and that results in that nonsense. So I felt like that entire podcast that they did the other day was all the slop that was meant to feed you what wasn't, what's off limits to the regular people. Anyway, we shouldn't be living in that two-class society. If you care about free speech, that was another thing they brought up, then you should be able to just speak. Guess what? People say nasty things about me all the time, including people in our chat. We showed you. Thanks for joining us. If you think I'm a Fed, knock yourself out. I don't have to say or ask anybody for permission to do whatever I do. Crazy. Go figure. The FBI couldn't run an op like this. So that's all we got for today. I hope you have a great afternoon. I'm actually going to leave this for tomorrow. I've got something that I want you to compare the state of MAGA with the idea that Owen Schroyer said and whether or not this slop had to be slop. I got Donald Trump from October of 2016 for tomorrow's program. And I want to consider it then. So it actually is it's a pretty long listen. So we'll wait there then. Anyway, until that point, God bless you. Look forward to seeing you guys again. Share the show and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.